Sometimes I feel like when I agree with all of you said.
I know you do.
Sometimes I feel like if I don't give effort, because before I was a very action-oriented person, and sometimes I just woke up and I don't feel like the motivation, inspiration to do anything. I just lie down on bed for a very long time, and then I feel worse. I feel like I'm wasting my life.
Well, sometimes action is inspired.
Yes.
So don't mistake action and effort. In other words, effort. By effort, we don't mean action, because nothing is more delicious than being tuned in and inspired to some action, because an action in non-resistance produces so much, and it is pleasurable. But when effort, that means the energy isn't lined up right, and you're trying to use the action to compensate for the energy, and you never get there. That's what we mean by effort. That's why effort feels like struggle and strain. Action doesn't have to feel like struggle or strain. In other words, when you use the laws of the universe and you go with the flow of that, then it's just inspired action.
I do feel that, but not as much as I used to be to do it. So I guess probably I should keep soothing myself.
Well, yes, for sure. But this isn't something that you're going to change overnight. In other words, you can't. The train isn't going to stop going that way and start going that way all at once. It's hard on the contents of the train. It's like if you've been told, Esther left her bed unmade. Yesterday. She left her bed unmade. And she stood in the doorway of her bedroom and she thought, I've never done this before, or not in a really long time. And nobody's going to see it. So maybe it doesn't matter. And the reason we tell you this embarrassing story is because it's something that Esther learned to do. You make your bed every day. You make your bed. You make your bed. You just feel better if you make your bed. You make your bed. You make your bed. You don't not make your bed. You don't not make your bed. You don't go off and leave your bed unmade. You don't because that's wrong. You don't leave your bed unmade. You don't leave your bed unmade. Well, so now here's the thing that we want you to sort out with us. Is making the bed right and leaving it unmade wrong? If Esther believes that making the bed is a good thing, isn't the path of least resistance for her to make her bed?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you get the rightness and wrongness out of things, but the thing that's a little tricky to sort out is, how did Esther come to believe that she should always make her bed? And we say, don't bog yourself down in trying to sort all of these things out. Be present. Esther stood there and said to herself, I'm not going to make my bed, and I'm not going to feel bad about not making my bed. My unmade bed is not going to be a condition that keeps me from alignment. Now, this sounds stupid to you. We know. This sounds like a silly comparison. But we want you to understand that there's not a right or wrong in anything. There's just alignment or not within you. And when we say to you, it's your job to make it all right for you right now, that sort of freaks you out in some ways, because you've been oriented, you've been trained by a society that never wanted you just to sort it out to soothe yourself. The society needs you to do it the way they need you to do it in order to please them. In other words, the housekeepers in this hotel are not standing in the doorways and thinking, make the bed or not make the bed. Make the bed or not make the bed. In other words, they're playing in a game. They're living by rules. They better make the beds. They have no choice but to make the beds if they're going to live in this game that they're living in. So what we're saying to you is that we understand how it is sometimes a little tricky to sort out the behavior.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do now.
Rather than trying so hard to sort out behavior, just for a little while, sort out feelings. And say to yourself, Abraham said, when my dream was coming true, when I got the thing that I so much wanted and got to sit in the hot seat and have a conversation with Abraham. And Abraham, a collective consciousness of infinite intelligence, gave their undivided attention to me.
Yeah.
When that happened to me, Abraham said to me, the only thing that matters is that you find a way of soothing yourself, because you've done the other work. You've done the sifting and the sorting. You've done the asking. You've done the asking, it's in the vortex, and it's all lined up. Now your work is simpler than you have been letting it be. Your work is to soothe yourself into a receptive mode. Now, whatever that means to you, we're not going to say this thought, think this thought, and don't think that thought. We're saying think the thoughts that feel the best that you can find. Just think the thought that feels the best that you can find. And as you think the thought that feels the best that you can find, that's good enough. And as you do that, you won't feel guilty. You'll feel soothed, you see. You never feel soothed and guilty at the same time. You never feel in alignment and guilty at the same time.
Yeah.
You can't beat up on yourself and be in alignment with the source within you, who will never beat up on you. You can't think bad thoughts about yourself and be in alignment with the source within you, who will never think bad thoughts about you.
Yeah.
You can never find your flaw and feel good, because the source within you will never find your flaw. You are flawless as far as the source within you is concerned. You are flawless because you are unconditional. You are the one who is placing the conditions, that's putting the flaws, that's putting something, a wedge between you and the source within you. Is that clear to you? You see how it works? So when we say you're not going to sort this out all at once, it's because all of you have layers of things that you've been thinking about and worrying about, and you've not been thinking wrong. We don't want you to think that we think that you've been thinking wrong. You just haven't been thinking kindly enough to yourself. It's just those kinds of things. And the reasons that most of you don't is because you've been living in a very comparative world where you've been comparing yourself with others, and there's nothing about that comparison that was ever meant to do anything other than inspire you to ideas that you could please yourself. The reason that you're here with so many others is not to make yourself more worthy than them, not to make yourself higher on the ladder or higher on the platform of metals than they are. It was never about that. It's just the variety that gives you ideas of the way you might want to mix up your paint in order to paint your palette. That's what the variety is all about. It's just for choices. It was never meant to be the way you compare yourself in terms of goodness or value against anyone else. You could not be more valuable. But somehow, in the contrast that is meant to serve you, to create the ideas, humans use it as a club to beat themselves up with. And so then you don't like you and you don't like them. You don't like them sometimes as they excel more than you do, and you don't like yourself as you don't excel as much as they do. So you put yourself in a position where you can't win when you're comparing in those ways. But if you would utilize the contrast in a way to just help you define what you want, and then you would use your emotions in order to acknowledge how you're doing in terms of staying in alignment with source,